A large part of acceptance is formed through understanding. As you become more accepting of yourself, of others, that doesn't mean that you still aren't cautious of others' bad behavior, but you have understanding for why they behave in the way they do. When I sit somewhere and I watch human beings interacting with one another, I can usually see why they're acting in the way they are. And I can usually see that humans are trying their best with their abilities that they have. Even when people aren't trying, they're still trying. People think, what does that mean? How can someone who's not trying be trying? Well, when they're sitting on the couch doing nothing, they've still made a choice to do that. There's still a struggle there. There's still a struggle in the human experience, even when it's doing nothing. Because if you ask them, are you happy with this existence? They will say, no, I'm not happy with this existence. So there is still a struggle there. There's still an internal trying of some sort, right? Maybe that trying's not all the time when they're just relaxing a bit, but maybe it's every few seconds, few minutes. Maybe they're thinking of getting up and doing something, but procrastinate. There is an internal trying. So when you look at human beings around you and you start to have compassion and understanding, you start to understand life in general much more. Take, for example, an election that's coming up in America. You have people voting for Trump. You have people voting for Kamala Harris. It's like watching a heavyweight title fight. There's the excitement for who's going to win, and the world's in a very strange place right now, and things are very black and white. People, especially people's views on politics. People either hate somebody who votes for the opposing party or the opposing leader, and are instantly an idiot if they vote for that person, instead of understanding why people make those decisions to vote for the person. When you look at it, you can understand why people vote for different people, different situations, different upbringing, different IQ, different experiences, different things that they're interested in. And that's always a great place to start with compassion. If you think everyone's an idiot who votes for one person, but think about why they might be making that decision. Think about why that appeals to them. Think about what would make them do that over the other person. That's the same for everything. We live in a very strange time right now where people are losing compassion very quickly. And it's important to remember that when you have compassion and understanding for human beings, and you look around and you do that, you really start to see things much more clearly, and you start to observe life set back a bit. I always try and observe life like I'm passing away soon, and I'm just watching life of the end of my days as an old person plays with a child and looks round at a sunset and appreciates their time that they passed along on this earth. People can learn most things from old people, but they don't. They ignore them. Same as they ignore very young people. But actually, what you're seeing with old people is you're seeing an acceptance of the passing that's soon to come. Or not, where they're very rigid and controlled, but soon they have to give in that control because death wins, passing wins. So when you start to observe and you look at life around you, there's a peacefulness. You have a compassion for others. You can love people without having to make sarcastic jokes and just be in love. You can have an understanding and a care for a friend without having to distract you. Look at a lot of young people, they make loads of jokes, many sarcastic jokes. They're trying to bond, but they're also trying to deflect because they don't want to show caring and compassion because they view it as weakness. But if you looked at someone who's dying in a hospital bed, they reach out their hand for a child, just to see the experience of a child coming into this world, into this rock floating through outer space, and they just want to bond with that child in its innocence and just bond in the now. And the same as they may talk to their grandson or their son and just enjoy a meal and just enjoy that moment. That is an experience that most are missing in the hustle and bustle, rushing to make more money, rushing to climb up the ladder, rushing to impress the Joneses, rushing. But they don't see that. I see people rushing all the time. I think, where are you going? What are you trying to do? Do you think rushing is getting you to a place? I watch them. I sit with a coffee in the coffee shop. I watch the world move 100 miles an hour. Now, I also move 100 miles an hour with the work that I do. But at the points, in the interval points, I sit and I observe the world. I observe myself going 100 miles an hour, and I remind myself of the shortness of my life. I remind myself that everything I own, I will not own, because I will be dead and it will be gone. I once bought something 600 years old, and the guy who sold it to me said to me, he said, "You don't own this." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "It owns you." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "It's 600 years old." He said, "You're just borrowing it for now in your short lifetime." It's true. It's very true. Sometimes people buy an old house. Think about the people who lived and died in that house. My parents' house, for example, probably been about 6 families there. There've probably been lots of babies born there. Lots of people died there. Very much the case. In America, very old houses, and you'll have had many, many, many generations live there. You think about that. Think of all those generations. Think of all the arguments. Think of all the people who thought they owned something. Think of all the young that died. Think of all those situations. Then you can notice the stillness in life. You have compassion and understanding for those around you. Every president who comes in is going to die. And then another president's going to come in and they're going to die. And every event that's the most exciting event, think of all the news. You know, when we get a newspaper and we look at all the news, I always think of all the old newspapers. If I just picked those up and read all the news, I wouldn't know all the stories. We're excited by the new one, we forget all the old. It's millions of stories in newspapers from all things in the past that you never knew that happened. Lives that you can't even remember, lives that the world's forgotten, the lives moving so fast. They forget every story and every person. The most famous person in the past doesn't even get mentioned much today. If you think about it, just think of the most famous people you can imagine. Now go back 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 years. How much are they getting mentioned? How much are you thinking about them day to day? We live at an incredible pace with a lack of depth of human connection and understanding. If you understood all humans fully, you wouldn't judge any of them. If you thought of every human as your son or daughter, you'd have unconditional love for them, which you're learning for yourself in unconditional self-acceptance. Every human being, no matter how horrendous the acts they've caused, no matter what's happened in their life, if you understand it and look at it and think about how they got to that position, you start to have a deeper understanding of them and then of yourself. As you accept others, you then become more accepting of yourself. Our lives are very short. You only realize that as you get older. I'm nearly 40. How the hell did that happen? Feels only a day ago like I was 20. Time is a very weird thing. Feels sometimes like there is no past and future and just everything happens in the now or has happened. It can feel like that. Life goes incredibly fast. We've barely got enough time for anything we want to do. People think they've got loads of time. They haven't. It goes very quickly. When you're 20, you're soon 25. 25, you're soon 30. 40, you feel like, where's it all gone? 30, you feel where it's all gone. It's very, very quick. We have our human experiences. We have short times with our parents and our loved ones. We don't know how long any of us have. We don't know how quickly our body could deteriorate with a series of illnesses that could all come out of nowhere. It only takes a doctor to say suddenly you've got one thing and suddenly your life spirals. And you have to adapt and you have to move quickly. We are living on a rock in outer space, in a spacesuit, our body, which we have no idea how it's functioning. We have no idea when it's going to suddenly go wrong. We have very short periods of time with all our loved ones and friends. There is very little time for judging, extreme judging, anger, hatred. You're not going to own anything when you die. People say that often online when someone's successful, but you're not going to own anything when you die. Yeah, but it certainly makes your life better when you're here. If you do own things, but then be careful from a minimalism point of view. Don't get caught up in materialism. We're at a time where that's at an all-time high, where people are obsessed with how they look. What do they have? But there's security that comes from what you have. So there's benefits to that too. If you have no mortgage, you have a freedom. If you have a good income, you have a freedom. There's a freedom there. But there's also freedom in having nothing. I've spoken to homeless people who have nothing and feel the most free. It's all perspectives in your head. At the end of the day, even if you move back in with your parents and you're older, have a nice dinner, you work, you have a family, you have to do that. Well, it's no big deal. It's not as big as you think it is. People lose their lives over thinking how big a deal it is when they lose things, materialistic things, possessions. So you have to think like that. You have to gradually accept that. Wisdom comes through hardship. Wisdom comes through pain. A lot of the wisdom that I have today came from a very hard life with poor health. Poor health taught me lessons in appreciation, taught me lessons in letting go. When you lose something, you learn something. When you gain lots of things, you often don't learn anything because you're so caught up in the gaining. There will be a time in the future when you look back, maybe a time when we've made 5,000, 6,000 videos, maybe a time when we're 10 times the size of where we are now. And lots of the lessons that we teach, you'll start to think, oh my God, that lesson was there. That was there and I didn't read it in a book. I didn't watch it in a video. But if you take some time, we put all the lessons there that we can. We don't have all lessons. We're learning and developing lessons to make OCD recovery easier for people. But we have a lot of lessons there. A lot of them are there in the content. And it's there, 3,000 videos on YouTube. You have to watch all of them. And lots of the words I'm saying, you may think, oh, that's not that important. Maybe some of them is not that important. Maybe some of them is not that important to you right now. But when you start applying them bit by bit, that wisdom will gain traction, mental traction, and will start laying those steps in your mind to mental freedom. When you have mental freedom, you can enjoy a coffee in peace. You don't have to rush. Think about how much that saves you in life. Think of the humans that are rushing. People sometimes show off to me about rushing. Okay, got to go here, got to fly there. We booked this, we booked that, we booked this, we booked that. I think, what are you going to do when you're there? Oh, you're going to eat dinner and you're going to look at a view. I can eat dinner and look at a view right here. Doesn't mean I don't travel. I travel a lot and I enjoy it, but I don't rush for the sake of I have to do. Because then it becomes a chase outside of ourselves. I need this to feel at peace. I need this to feel fulfilled, but you have what you need to feel fulfilled right now. Think about these lessons. They will pave the way to internal acceptance and to peace.